General Motors, their sales have been crashing in China. I mean, you're looking at their sales now are less than half what they were around 4 years ago and declining month after month until, well, they just stopped declining. In fact, over the last 3 months, something very weird happened in China. And I can't say why. Why is this going on? Why has this happened? I don't think anyone knows. But General Motors sales all of a sudden went up. They kind of skyrocketed in China. Maybe it's their new EVs, or maybe something else weird is going on. I'm not sure. But here are the details. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. Great to have you with us. If you feel like the channel brings you any value, I'd really appreciate if you could join us and become a YouTube member. You do get access to some videos not on the main channel. I'll put a link in the description below. General Motors China sales rebounded for the second quarter, rising 20% to top 447,000 in the April to June period. So for a 3-month period, sales rose by 20%. 447,000 cars. As you can see, this is where General Motors has historically sold the most cars, right? Historically, this is the market where they made the most money and sold the most cars. That's been cratering. GM had to make write-offs last year of about $5 billion because of essentially having to say, well, we're going to get rid of these production lines and we're going to, streamline things and write off this factory here. And anyhow, all of a sudden, General Motors starts selling more electric cars in China, and their sales have gone up significantly. This was the biggest rise in General Motors quarterly sales in China since the first quarter of 2021, just over 4 years ago, when the market rebounded from the bad months of COVID-19's pandemic, right? So really, the truth is, GM sales in China haven't actually gone up, really, if you actually account for the COVID-19 situation. They haven't gone up in essentially 5 years. They've gone down every year. And all of a sudden this happens, which is quite a surprise. The recovery amid a bruising price war across China's new vehicle market was driven by rising demand for electric vehicles and strong gains for key Buick and Cadillac models, said General Motors. Now, there is a big asterisk here, and I'll point out what that is in just a moment. Second quarter deliveries of electrified models at its 2 joint ventures with SAIC Motor Corporation, SAIC GM, and SAIC GM Wuling surged 50% from a year earlier, said General Motors China. Now, I should point out, this is a bit of an accounting kind of anomaly, really, to be honest, because General Motors only own 33% of this company, and yet they claim more sales from that company, which I guess you could do, but at what point do you not claim them? Like, let's say General Motors only own 20% of the company. Could they still claim all the sales and say, yeah, we sold, let's say this new company they create, let's say they joined up with Toyota and Volkswagen, and it was a 33% joint venture, or let's say they joined up with 4 companies, Toyota, Volkswagen, and BYD, right? And then they sold, 30 million cars. Could General Motors just say, well, we sold 30 million cars last year? I think they probably would, but ultimately, how much money are you going to make selling budget-priced vehicles? They are budget-priced, with a tri-venture with Wuling and SAIC. So yeah, I mean, it's true that their sales went up as a result of this 50% rise in EV sales, which is good, but it is also worth pointing out that the profits from this situation are going to be likely very, very small, if any, to be fair. Obviously, GM is putting some pretty big discounts on its cars in order to get them out the door, to try to maintain market share, to try not to lose more market share. But as a result, of course, customers have begun to come back. However, I don't see this playing out well in the long run. And the reason is this, because the bloodbath of China, it's a lose-lose situation right now, because there's just too many manufacturers fighting over what is a big car market, but it is going to shrink. It is going to shrink over the next 10 years. And either way, it's still a zero-sum game. And these Chinese automakers are willing to sell at a loss if they have to, for as long as it takes to essentially get rid of these legacy car companies. And that's what will happen eventually. So GM sales going up by 20% in the interim, the meantime. It looks good, and it is kind of good, but it might not be so good in the long run. It might be better off for General Motors to just go, you know what? The writing's on the wall here. Really, how do we compete in this situation, this bloodbath, where we have to sell below cost or at cost at best, I think. That's the big challenge they're facing, and that situation isn't going to change regardless of this increase in sales. I know I sound like I'm being negative, and I actually do like General Motors. I do. I'm serious. I really do. Thanks for watching. General Motors has become the #1 electric car seller in Canada. Who would have thought this would have happened? I don't know. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Great to have you with us. General Motors has become the #1 EV seller in Canada, thanks to, well, I'm sure you know what thanks to. After its EV sales more than doubled in the first quarter, GM claims it's now the #1 seller. With a full lineup of 13 electric vehicles, GM sold more EVs than Tesla, which is a pretty impressive result. So 13 different electric models. That's awesome. I mean, really cool. And that means that GM's EV sales increased by a pretty staggering 252% in Canada in the first 3 months of this year. January, February, March, up 252%, with new Chevy and Cadillac models helping to drive sales. I've got to say, in the last let's say the last 12 months, GM have really upped their game. I think the new Silverado EV is actually really good. The Chevy Equinox EV, though, led the way with 1,900 deliveries, followed by the Silverado with 900, and Cadillac's new entry-level Optiq had a really strong numbers with 615 models sold, matching nearly the 720 units sold of its first EV, the Cadillac Lyriq. So, even the GMC Hummer EV pickup and SUV saw more demand, with sales growing by 232% from a pretty small base, admittedly, to 186 for the Hummer, and the GMC going up by 88% to 252. Guys, I personally cannot understand why anyone would buy the GMC Hummer EV pickup. I think it's bizarre. It's monstrously heavy. It's just, the Silverado EV is good. The the Hummer EV pickup is just utterly ridiculous. Anyway, combined, General Motors sold a total of 5,750 EVs in Q1. According to GM, that means they overtook Tesla. GM Canada posted on social media saying, "We claim the top spot as Canada's #1 EV seller," and Tesla registered a shockingly low number of 524 vehicles in Quebec in Q1, down 87% from the same period last year. That's just Quebec, though. We don't know what Tesla's numbers are for all of Canada. Is Tesla going to bounce back and reclaim its #1 position? What do you guys think? Let me know what your thoughts are on that. The steep decline in sales in Quebec for Tesla came after the government paused EV incentives from February to April the 1st, and Canada also paused its iZEV rebate program in January, which offered $5,000 or up to $5,000 on the purchase or lease of an EV. That was helped to drive EV adoption, but unfortunately, because they cancelled it, EV sales might now go down.